Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For connectors, cables, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by ICOM. Heard it, worked it, logged it. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information about ICOM radios.
It's Ham Radio.
Good evening, everyone. It's time to escape the debate. It's Ham Talk Live, episode number 233, News and Views on FCC Moves, with CQ Magazine's editor Rich Moseson, W2VU, recorded live on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight we're joined by Rich Moseson at W2VU, and we'll take your calls live a little later in the show. Last week here on Ham Talk Live, Bruce Horn, WA7B&M, was here to talk about the contest calendar. If you missed that show, just head on over to hamtalklive.com or your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, and you can listen to that. And you can always catch the rebroadcast of Ham Talk Live over on WTWW. That's 5085 AM, 5.085, Saturday afternoons at about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So get your questions ready to go for Rich. If you're listening to us live on Thursday night, you can give us a call after the interview at 859-982-7373. I'll give you the phone number again here in just a minute. You can also send us a question by Twitter. We're at Ham Talk Live on Twitter. We'll be checking that throughout the evening. If you're on Spreaker, you can also type in the comments. If you're logged in to Spreaker, you can do that. And again, the telephone number is 859-982-7373. And we'll take your questions and comments for Rich. We also have a new feature on the show tonight that we'll have a little bit later, so we're excited for that. We'll take a listen to Rick Garrett in 9GSU. He's got a weekly segment starting this week, so we'll take a listen to that a little later on in the show, but I'll be back with Rich right after this word from ICOM America right here on Ham Talk Live. Get out and be active with ICOM's new IC705 and its optional multifunction backpack. Now shipping. The IC705 is the perfect QRP companion, as you have base station features and functionality at the tip of your fingers in a portable package, covering HF, 6, 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and only weighs 1 kilogram, or just over 2 pounds. With RF direct sampling for most of the HF band, IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz, and a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen with live band scope and waterfall. The IC705 runs 5 watts with the battery BP272 and 10 watts with a power supply. Sideband, CW, AM, FM, and full D-Star functions are available. A micro USB connector, Bluetooth and wireless LAN, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, a micro SD card slot, a speaker mic comes standard, and supports QRP operations. The perfect accessory for your IC705 is the optional backpack LC192. It has a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or just a day in the park. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM radios.
What's that call sign again? WB9VPG. That's right, Delium-9 Bente Pterodactyl Gnat, right?
Welcome back to Ham Talk Live. Check out all the latest gear from ICOM at ICOMAmerica.com/amateur. Ham Talk Live's on the air every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. HamTalkLive.com. Thanks to ICOM for sponsoring the show. And with us tonight is Rich Moseson, W2VU, the editor of CQ Magazine and editorial director of CQ Communications Incorporated. He's been a ham since 1970. He served 8 years as the section manager for the Northern New Jersey section of the ARRL and former member and past chairman of the ARRL Public Relations Committee. He's been a CQ staffer since 1992. He was the founding editor of CQ VHF magazine, wrote and produced the 7 introductory ham radio programs in the CQ video library, and was CQ magazine's 50th anniversary coordinator back in 1995. So, Rich, thanks for coming back on the show tonight.
Oh, it's great to be here. I never thought I'd be alternative programming to a presidential debate, but
we're competing with the big boys tonight.
I'm hoping there will be less fireworks here.
Yes, there will be less fireworks here. I can guarantee that. I have the kill switch, so I can guarantee that one. I can't kill the other mics, but I can kill this one. So we can definitely do that. And if we show up in the Nielsen ratings, we're doing well. So yeah, we'll see. Well, we're trying not to get into the politics too much, but we are talking about government a lot tonight. There's been a lot of headlines coming out of the FCC lately, and so thought, okay, let's do a show about all the stuff going on with the FCC. And of course, the biggie is this proposal for a $50 fee for all amateur radio license applications, renewals, new tests, upgrades, the whole bit, $50 each time. The FCC says, well, it's an automated process, but it costs money for the servers, so a nominal fee like, $50 for every application is reasonable, and they've kind of been charged with doing this. So tell us a little more about the details of that, and we may get into even what some of your readers are having to say about it, and what all kinds of people are having to say about it.
Well, the proposal is much broader than amateur radio, of course. It covers every service licensed by the FCC. And the changes are coming about because of a law that was passed by Congress a few years ago called the Ray Baum Act. But the purpose of the changes is to make the fees more reflective of the costs of processing the applications. And the commission has said itself in the NPRM that there's very little cost involved in processing most amateur applications. It's, on a new license application or an upgrade, all the work is done by the VECs. They file it electronically with the FCC in Gettysburg, and unless there's a red flag that pops up, that just automatically processes the license, either an issuance or an upgrade or renewal. There's virtually no cost involved. They're not even mailing out printed licenses anymore. So it makes, if this was a business, $50 wouldn't be a big deal. And I think that's the perspective they're looking at it from, because most of the other services that they license are businesses. So, even a small station or two-way shop or something like that has like a GMRS license or something like that. Okay, $50 is not usually a big deal for a business, and they can write it off their taxes. And from a business perspective, it's not a big deal. And even from our own perspective, hey, they're going to say, hey, it's only $5 a year, which shouldn't be a big deal. But of course, you have to pay it all at once for 10 years worth.
Right. Yeah.
And $50 can be an obstacle. I mean, right now, you look at it right where we are right now. We are in the middle of a deep economic recession. Lots and lots of people are not working. And every penny and every dollar is very important for basics. We're trying to get more and more young people interested and involved in ham radio, and $50 for a teenager is a big deal. A lot of our more active hams are senior citizens who may be on a fixed income, and $50 is a big deal for them. And you have to, look besides the money angle of it. Particularly talking about senior citizens in this pandemic. I mean, ham radio has been a lifeline for lots and lots of people all over the country who have been isolated in their homes. Particularly if they're older, if they live alone. So many clubs around the country have either started or expanded nets to basically operate on a daily basis to check in on some of their members who may not be able to get out at all and make sure everything's okay. And having that license and keeping that license is a very, very important thing for lots and lots of people. And it just seems like the totally wrong time to be imposing a fee like this. That some people will say, well, there used to be a $70 fee for a vanity call, and that's absolutely correct. But a vanity call was an option. If you didn't want to pay $70 for the call, you keep your FCC issued random call, and you still have your license. You're still on the air, and you just grumble about not being able to pick your own call sign. But this applies to everything. Except like an address change or something like that. New license application, renewals, upgrades, anything but the most minor administrative update. And if you look at it cost-wise, the most minor administrative update is going to incur the same amount of expense in terms of server usage as doing an upgrade, doing a renewal. So it makes no sense. If they have to charge something, maybe they could, do $1 a year, and then you get a $10 fee. And that, I think, most people can probably handle once every 10 years. That's my personal thought. Obviously, the preference would be to continue to have no fees involved with our licenses. And, in other countries, that's a fact of life. You go to Europe and you have to pay a rather significant fee every year to have a ham license. But that has not been the tradition here. And the timing is just all wrong. You asked about reader comment. I've had just one I got today in the mail from a gentleman in Texas. And he's addressing this situation. He says, with 770,000 hams in the USA, the FCC stands to make $38,500,000 in installments of $43,800 a year. Says, hams buy their own radio gear, pay the sales tax. They provide free emergency communications in disasters. They provide their own transportation to and from disaster areas. They provide their own food at disasters. Some hams rent motel rooms near disaster sites, or sleep at an emergency shelter, or bring their own RV and use it as a command center. And his guesstimate is that this is going to probably have an impact on about 10% of the currently licensed hams, which he says, if this goes into effect, in my estimation, 77,000 would-be hams just lost interest in ham radio. 77,000 renewals won't happen. 77,000 upgrades won't happen. 77,000 vanity call signs won't be applied for. 77,000 printed licenses won't be requested. 77,000 school-age kids won't get their license, and goes on. And he's absolutely right. I don't know if the numbers are correct, but the impact is definitely, he's on the mark. It's going to have a significant impact on our ability to keep growing. We've been doing a great job of growing steadily over the past several years, and we need to keep up that momentum. And this is going to be a big roadblock in that way for all segments of our community, the young people, people who are having economic problems, people who are on a fixed income. It's going to be a really big deal to have to come up with $50. And it's not even necessarily just once every 10 years, because you're talking about upgrades and renewals. So a vanity license call. So if you get your license now and pay $50 for it, and then 6 months down the road you want to upgrade to general, that's another $50. And a year down the road you want to get your extra, that's another $50. And then you decide you want a vanity call, and that's another $50. So over the course of 2 years, it may cost you $200 in license fees. And that's really completely outrageous.
Well, there's so many things coming into my mind right now. First of all, the with my school background, and getting young people into ham radio, one of the things that I did a few years ago was I switched VECs over to the Laurel VEC program, because we were able to give the tests for free, because a lot of times, the $14, it usually wasn't a problem for them to get it. It was a problem for them to remember to bring it. And so I admit that a few times I switched hats, and Mr. Rapp decided to pay the fee because they weren't, they could get it, but they just weren't going to bring it. And they had to remember it, and I'd just rather do it than have to, remind them all the time. Now, don't forget to bring your money. So, if they didn't, it got paid out of Mr. Rapp's wallet. But, I know one of the things that people have talked about is, maybe saying under the age of 26, exempt those from the fee. I agree. $50 for a teenager is a lot, let alone a elementary kid or a middle school kid that doesn't have a real income. and it does put some limitations there. I also think about, what you said with the vanity calls, and I couldn't agree more that, you can still operate without a vanity call. And so if you want a vanity call, sure, pay the fee. But then I remember why they got rid of the vanity fee in the first place. They said it cost too much to process the $70 fee. By the time they processed all the fees,
That's right.
They weren't making any money off of it. So now they're going to make money off of a $50 fee?
Yeah, it's government logic for you. But the most fearsome words in the English language. I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I will note that the comment period is open on this proceeding. It's MD docket 20-270, I believe, is the designator for it. Comment period is open. I would encourage all of your listeners to make reasonable, respectful comments, but explain why this would be a burden for you or for people you know. And the commission does listen to comments. They read them. The staff, at least, reads every comment that comes in, and they do make a difference. And we are well known in the commission for being among the most vocal licensees that they deal with. So we need to maintain our reputation, be vocal, file lots of comments, but explain to them reasonably and rationally why this is a bad idea and why the fee, if it can't be eliminated, should be reduced to the absolute minimum possible.
And there's 50 different directions this has gone in the preliminary comments. So, some people are saying, heck yeah, I'll pay it if you'll actually do some enforcement. And, and let's exempt the young people, and let's exempt anybody, over a certain age, and let's just do the vanity calls. And there's like 50 bazillion different directions that all of these things are going.
Oh, it's the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
But, but if in the comments there's a clear consensus that develops for an alternative approach, that will be noted by the staff, and they will note it to the commissioners as they put together their final decision on it. So, the process does work. You may not always get what you want. You may not get all of what you want, but they do read them. They do listen. They may not decide the way you want to, but sometimes they do. And particularly, with amateur regulations, we are kind of a community unto ourselves. It's not like broadcasters who are serving the general public. Our regulations affect us, and except for those that are intended to keep us from causing interference to other services. But as far as the regulations internal to ham radio, we're the only people affected by it. So the commission really wants amateurs to provide guidance and leadership to them on the direction that we want the regulations to go. And I've heard this from people at the commission in the past. And, they said, we don't want to be sitting up here in Washington and just telling you what to do because we think it's the best thing to do. We want to hear how you want the service structured, how you want the requirements to be, and then it's our job to figure out how to make them fit in with the broader picture of licensing and regulation. So I would encourage everyone to submit comments. You can do it electronically through the electronic comment filing system. It's really pretty easy. And let the commission know that how you feel. And if you think that, there's a reasonable alternative that they should consider, offer it up as a suggestion. You never know when they might say, hey, this could work.
Yeah.
So
that's all good things, and there's some strategy going on too. We may talk about that a little bit later, but we're still on topic number 1. We haven't hit 2, 3, or 4 yet, so we better move along here. We've got this other big thing from the FCC, not quite as big as this one, but it's still pretty big, about losing spectrum. They're going to sunset the secondary use of 3.3 to 3.5 gigahertz to open up space for some new 5G, the 5th generation cell phone data band here. Who is this going to impact, and when is this going to take place, and what are you hearing about the loss of spectrum?
Well, it's not going to impact enough of us, and that's part of the problem. Because we're not making the use that we really need to be of our microwave bands. And I wrote an editorial about it several months ago, which I called the microwave or the gigahertz imperative. And we really need to do more on the microwave bands. We can't say we're afraid to use microwaves. I mean, I'm talking to you right now on a 5 gigahertz radio. It's called my cell phone. And I'm using microwave communications to talk to the phone. I'm wearing wireless earbuds. And they're using Bluetooth, which operates in the microwave. So I'm sitting here and talking to you using 2 different sets of microwave frequencies, and then saying, "Oh, well, microwave radiation. Well, that's dangerous stuff. We can't be using microwaves." Excuse me, but I'll bet you are every day.
Yep. Yep.
And you've got a microwave transmitter that's on virtually all the time in your pocket. So it can't be being afraid of microwaves that's keeping us off the bands there. The antennas are not big. They're small. They're microwaves. You're using a lot of dish antennas. Getting out and operating portable is getting to be very, very popular. Look at summits on the air, and parks on the air, and islands on the air. All these OTA programs. We should probably have a MOTA program, microwaves in the air. Get people out in the same places with a dish, and get on these microwave bands. You're not going to work worldwide DX direct on the gigahertz bands, but we have satellites that operate on the gigahertz bands. We have a thing called the moon that you can bounce signals off of on the microwave bands. So you can work DX on microwaves. There's a satellite segment in the 9 centimeter band, the 3.3 to 3.5 gigahertz band that we're talking about here. But as the FCC pointed out, there are no active satellites in that band at the moment. There's lots of stuff you can do on the microwave bands that we need to start doing. We are supposed to be leaders in technology, and a lot of us are in our professional lives, but we have to do that in ham radio too. And we have to make much better use of these microwave bands broadly. So we've already lost 76 gigahertz for vehicular radar, 10 gigahertz, which is among the most active of the microwave ham bands, is up for review at the next World Radio Communication Conference. And 3.3 gigahertz here, we're in the process of losing it. Right now, what the services that we've got there's several mesh networks that are up and running on there, and out in California, they're providing significant backup communication service to people fighting the wildfires. They're ad hoc networks, and there's a lot of digital amateur television that's going on there. So it is among the more active microwave bands. I would say probably the third most active. You've got 2.4 is easy, but we still need to be making more use of it because it's shared with Wi-Fi. So you have all these Wi-Fi modems out there that can be tweaked onto the ham frequencies and do mesh networks and things like that. And then you've got 10 gigahertz band or X band, which is growing in popularity. And you get to discover all sorts of very cool propagation on these bands too. I think one of the coolest things on 10 gigahertz is something called knife edge refraction. And you want to talk to somebody when you have a mountain in between you. Signals at 10 gigahertz can go over the top of a mountain and down. Knife edge diffraction, it's called. That's right.
Very cool.
And these are things that you don't see on HF or even VHF, UHF. You can do rain scatter on 10 gigahertz. Your average raindrop is just the right size to absorb and re-radiate radio signals. So you can bounce signals off a thunderstorm. There's just so many cool things you can do up on the microwave bands that we need to do more of and have more fun and learn more about them. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do this for much longer on the 9 centimeter band. The FCC broke it down into two portions in the proceeding, mostly because the Defense Department is the primary user of the band, and there are certain uses that the Defense Department is not ready to give up yet, and they're still working out plans. We've got, I'm just looking at our News Bites column in our November issue is focused on the sunset of this band. I'm just looking for the details on there. So I'm just reading the process of making the 9 centimeter band available for 5G use will take several years, and the FCC has yet to reach an agreement with the Department of Defense on relocating its operations from half the band. So the proceeding has essentially been split into two parts. And while the formal removal of the amateur allocation from the band will happen 30 days after the report and order is published in the Federal Register, which I believe it already has been, current users will be permitted to continue operating for quite a while. The so-called sunset dates for amateur operation will be determined in a future FCC proceeding. The first portion of the band we're going to lose is the top of the band, 3.4 to 3.5 gigahertz, which we will need to vacate by the time the FCC begins licensing companies for 5G operations in that band segment. It's expected this is going to be sometime in the middle of 2022. So we got just about 2 years of usage left on there. It's unclear whether new operations will be permitted. It's very obviously very difficult to enforce this. It's not like we're licensed to a specific frequency in a specific location. So I don't know how they would know whether a new user is on the band or not. But the lower band segment from 3.3 to 3.4 gigahertz will be closed to hams when and if licensing begins for commercial users in that segment. The time frame for this is not known because the FCC is still negotiating with the Defense Department on relocating its operations from those portions of the band. And nobody knows yet when or whether they will reach agreement on it. And, Defense Department is not easily thrown off of radio spectrum. So if it comes down to them eventually saying, nope, we can't do this, we're going to stay here, then they're going to stay there. And we'll see what happens with the secondary amateur allocation. I mean, this is an area that the ARRL really went to the mat with the commission on trying to maintain our current secondary status there. We've been operating as secondary users on a non-interference basis with the primary users, who are Defense Department users, for years and years without problems. There are virtually no reports of interference issues or anything like that. There has been basically full cooperation and full compliance with the secondary allocation and not causing interference and accepting interference from the primary user. So the ARRL really went to bat for holding on to this ban and maintaining our secondary status, and to be able to go in between the 5G uses and things like that and continue doing what we're doing. But the commission didn't want to hear about it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, it is. Well, also in other news, the FCC literally made a move with their headquarters in Washington, D.C. They're now at 45 L Street Northeast, Washington, D.C., 20554, and they also implemented a new logo. So you can check that out if you're interested in the new logo. But we are behind, so we're going to take a break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about some more of this and maybe some CQ Worldwide and some other things, and we'll unveil the new segment here after this word from Tower Electronics right here on Ham Talk Live.
Thanks for choosing Tower Electronics. How may we help you today? We have PL259s, we have in connectors, we have SMA adapters, we have BNC adapters. What can I show you today?
Where's the tower?
Well, we don't actually have a tower with us, but we have all kinds of things you can use with a tower. We have power poles, antennas, soldering irons, and meters.
Where's the tower?
Ma'am, that's the name of our company. We can't haul towers to all the hamfests across the country that we visit, but we have almost every connector and adapter you would need to connect your antenna that's on your tower.
I don't think there's a tower back there. I really don't.
Tower Electronics. Visit us at a hamfest near you or call 920-435-2973 or see our whole catalog at pl-259.com. Sorry, one thing we don't have is a tower.
Join the conversation. Give us a call at 859-982-7373. Again, the number to call is 859-982-7373. Or, if you'd rather type than talk, tweet us at Ham Talk Live. Now, here's Neil Rapp with more Ham Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. You're talking ham radio, baby. You're listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
Welcome back to Ham Talk Live. Thanks to Scott and Jill at Tower Electronics for sponsoring this show tonight to help bring you Ham Talk Live. Tower Electronics will be down the road from me, Bedford, Indiana, November 7th. And then Fort Walton Beach, Florida, the Hamfest there, November 13th and 14th, COVID permitting, of course. But you can catch them anytime at pl-259.com. And you can catch Ham Talk Live every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at hamtalklive.com. And be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, we've got a new segment of the show this week. N9GSU, Rick Garrett from Indianapolis, Indiana, is kind enough to humor me. And we came up with this new segment. So, here we go with the debut of the N9GSU Ham Talk Live Ham Radio Joke of the Week.
Now it's time for the Ham Talk Live Ham Radio Joke of the Week, a part of the show where Rick tells us a ham radio joke. The Ham Talk Live Ham Radio Joke of the Week is brought to you by QRM Labs. Now, here's Rick Garrett in N9GSU with today's Ham Talk Live Joke of the Week.
I was at the Hamfest the other day and I saw a radio for sale for only $1, but the volume was stuck on full blast. I thought to myself, I can't turn that down.
This has been the Ham Talk Live Ham Radio Joke of the Week with Rick Garrett in N9GSU. Tune in again next week for another joke from Rick.
Well, there you go. I can't turn that down. All right, well, it's time for your calls, so, yeah. I had you turned off. You'll have to say it again.
I said he's twisted.
Oh, well, it's time for your calls. If you have a question or comment for Rich, give us a call, 859-982-7373, or tweet us at HamTalkLive. If you're listening to us on WTWW or on the podcast edition, we're not here. It's Thursday night. The debate's going on, and we're escaping it. So let's see here. We've got several things going on. First of all, Trip K5TRP says Rich has been on a podcast roll this week. So you're making the rounds here.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but suddenly. I was on Ham Nation last night. I thought it was supposed to be next week, but I got a note from Bob at about 6 o'clock saying, we're ready for you.
Oh, oops.
So, and of course, I do a regular segment once a month on Amateur Radio Roundtable about what's coming up in the next issue. And I'm doing 2 of them this month because on September 29th, which was the day I was supposed to do it, that was the first debate. And Tom canceled the show that night to not get in the way of the debate. And then he had streaming difficulties the following week, so that didn't happen. And I finally got on last week. And so, yeah, I'm kind of bouncing around the podcast this month.
Yeah, you're getting your time in here. Well, Brett, WY7BG, says the current FCC seems bound and determined to do every possible favor for the cellular triopoly, including booting others off of the spectrum. Do you believe that this move is part and parcel of this, discouraging ham radio as an excuse to repurpose the spectrum with the the license fees and the spectrum loss?
Well, both of these are the direct result of legislation passed by Congress. There was the Ray Baum Act is the law that's regarding the fees, and the 5G. I forget the name of the law. Let me see if it's in my notes here. I think it's called the Mobile Now Act or something like that. Basically, Congress directed the FCC to make available contiguous spectrum between 3.3 to 3.55 gigahertz to make it available for 5G services nationwide, so that the companies wouldn't have to be dealing with having some segments available in this part of the country and not in that part of the country, and having to shift things around. So I don't think that you can lay any blame on the commission itself for these sets of actions. You can blame Congress if you'd like, but these are both the direct result of laws passed by Congress directing the commission to clear the frequencies for 5G and to remake the fee structure. So I think that the responsibility in this case is on Congress and not the commission.
Okay, well, that's it, and I'm holding back my comments about it. It's all about the dollar, but let's see here. Jim K5ND says, greatly appreciated Rich's recent column titled "The Young Hams Crisis is Getting Old." I agree with his perspective and great quotes from 1938 and 1948.
Well, thank you, Jim. And it's, as Neil knows, I am one of the biggest proponents of getting young people involved in amateur radio and recognizing those young hams who are doing great things. But the people who are complaining now that we're not getting any young hams into the hobby are the same people who 30 years ago were young people not getting into the hobby. Because 30 years ago, the same complaints were being heard. And obviously 50 and 70 and 80 years ago, this is just seems to be as old as ham radio itself, the complaint that we're not getting any young people in. Somehow they managed to sneak in, despite our best efforts. And I used to give a talk at club meetings back when there were club meetings called Ham Radio Successfully Dying for the Past 50 Years. Because we've been hearing the same stuff over and over again about how this is going to kill ham radio, that's going to kill ham radio. And ham radio just sucks it all up and churns it over and makes it part of ham radio. But I have to expand that to now, ham radio successfully dying for the past 80 years. It's not to say that we should not be actively encouraging young people to become hams. We absolutely should, and to get on the air and to get active and to remake ham radio in their image with the new technology that's available to us. But it's not the crisis that so many people make it out to be, because if it was, there would be no ham radio today, and there wouldn't have been for the past 40, 50 years. So it's, I was just looking at a article today that I think is going to be one of our CQ classics in November. It was talking about the number of hams at different points. Before World War I, there were 6,000 licensed amateurs in the United States. By the time World War II rolled around and ham radio got shut off again, there were 60,000 hams. And today there are 770,000. As I said, dying successfully for decades.
Yeah. And our young people are there. They're growing. And we're doing everything we can to grow that. And just on Newsline, actually anchored it just a few hours ago, coming out tomorrow, there's a couple of good youth interest stories on Newsline, and one of them is one that I'm involved with, and I have Bryant Rascal coordinating, and that's December Yoda month, where all these young hams get on and made over 100,000 contacts last December, and they're going to try to break that record again this December. So there's more out there now than when I was 5 years old and trying to navigate the ham bands, but it's growing, and maybe not as fast as we'd like, but it is growing. Well, thanks, Jim, for that, and I think that's what we have so far tonight. I know we were going to talk a little bit, and we're already over time. We were going to talk a little bit about CQ Worldwide, because that's this weekend. That's the biggie.
That's right.
So,
what do you? 22 hours from now it starts.
Yeah. So, what are you expecting from CQ Worldwide in the middle of a pandemic?
Well, it's been really amazing. This is another example of how ham radio is really a wonderful thing for people. It has been keeping those of us who are socially isolated, socially connected. We are very fortunate that we have these radios that let us talk to people around the corner and around the world, even if we happen to be stuck in our homes or going out for very limited excursions for like food and medicine, and that's about it. One of the casualties of the pandemic has been a lot of de-expeditions and trips to somewhat exotic places to operate. But a lot more people have been, since they've been home without a whole lot of other stuff to do, they've been spending a lot more time on the radio. And we have had record participation in all of our contests so far this year. It shows no signs of slowing down. It's not just our contest, but every contest since March has had record participation. So we are expecting the CQ Worldwide this weekend to be part of that. There are going to be fewer multipliers to be had, because a lot of the people who normally go and activate different islands and exotic places for the contest are not making the trip this year. We're going to have a lot more competition in the single op categories. We've seen some innovation in multi-op areas, though. A lot of remote operation, a lot of hybrid. We're featuring that in our November issue also. Hybrid remote and local operation, where you have a multi station where you have one operator at the station physically controlling one radio and keeping an eye on the others, while other operators are coming in remotely and operating from other locations. Our May issue featured on the cover a totally remote multi operation with, I think it was 10 or 12 operators, all in different places, operating remotely from a station in Maine, and I think they won. So there's a lot of ham ingenuity going on, a lot of innovation, and a lot of activity, and that's really great.
Yeah, that's some cool stuff, and I know there's more and more of those remotes popping up all the time, and they're going to be useful this weekend. That's for sure. So make sure you get a chance, get on CQ Worldwide this weekend. It's a great opportunity to rack up some DXCC credits and get some countries and have a fun time. So,
and the sun is starting to wake up, so there's going to be
sun's
DX.
waking up. Yeah, so get in there and give it a shot. It's on the way up. Well, we've got all kinds of stuff that we could talk about, but we're already over time, Rich. So we're going to end it here. But I thank you so much for being on the show and talking about all this stuff. Great stuff.
My pleasure.
I know you've got a couple of books coming out that you're working on over at CQ too. I'll give you like a minute here or two if you want to do something quick on those.
Well, we're in the editing process on them. One is a broad brush introduction to ham radio. written by Eric Nicholas, KL7AJ, who some of you may be familiar with. He's written a lot of ARRL books, and he's one of our columnists. And he has a really great way of just connecting with people and talking about technology in non-technical terms, so to bring people in and get them interested. And the other is a complete update to our shortwave propagation handbook, which is quite long in the tooth by now. And there's been so much that has been learned over the course of the past cycle. And in terms of new satellites and new data on propagation and solar activity, it's all being worked into the revised version of this book. So hopefully both of them will be available for Christmas, and they will be worth your while regardless of when they're out there.
All right, and let everybody know where they can find CQ and the books and all the information on all of that stuff, and a new calendar coming out here too.
That's right. The calendar is out. I've got one sitting right in front of me here. I love it. It's all available at our website at www.cq-amateur-radio.com.
Okay,
and,
there you go.
You can also subscribe.
All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to more great things out of CQ Communications and CQ Magazine. Thanks for being here, as always, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Very good. Glad to join you. And
perhaps the next time you're on every other podcast.
That's right. So hope to see a lot of your listeners on the air this weekend.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So that's a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. Thanks to my guest, Rich Moseson, W2VU from CQ Communications, and everybody out there in cyberspace for listening and typing in tonight. And invite you back next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, when we won't have the excuse of getting away from the presidential debate. For a list of all of our upcoming guests, visit hamtalklive.com. And if you like the show, please leave us a review. That would help us out tremendously. So for now, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.